Hi everyone, this is Aaron Shimmons here for TORQ Live. This is a spine race special. The invite is out to Sam and the media team. Sam and Will, how you doing?
Hey, hello.
Good to see you guys. I take it you guys are in Edale in the podcasting studio.
Yeah. In the only spare room they had available at the Peak Centre, yeah, we're at Race HQ.
The air of mystery. Make it seem more glamorous than that from here on out. So let's start off. This is Trail Talk Live. We run 30 minutes. It's going to be pretty fast paced. What we want to touch on, let's get into what the course is looking like. Let's hear about the top contenders. Are there any dark horses out there? But let's maybe kick it off with how's it looking at Edale that some of the other races are starting off tomorrow?
Cold. Cold, yeah. Like a Christmas card. It's stunning around Edale at the moment, but it is snowy everywhere and it is thick on the ground. And it's stayed cold, so it is just sitting there.
Right. Okay. And in terms of like race organization, and it must be pretty busy in the little village, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We must multiply the population of this village by 20, 30, 50 every time we roll into town. They are incredibly patient, this little community here. But yeah, we've obviously got people up in the hills monitoring the situation. We've got people all over the place. It's like a little army.
Well, maybe we could just touch on your involvement because I know your face from the YouTube videos through the years at the various spine races. So for the audience's sake, just like what are you going to be doing through the whole race week, I suppose?
So I sort of oversee the team that are grabbing all the content that's going to go out on the Spine social media channels. I'll be running around with the camera myself, getting some photos, videos, interviews with the runners. And I tend to present the evening updates as well, which is something that happened by accident because nobody else was willing to talk on camera a few years ago. But I've fallen into it and I found I enjoy it. So here we are. And this is Christmas for me. This is like my favorite week of the year. Spineless. Sorry.
Yeah, the video updates at the end of each day are it's the one thing that the dot watchers look forward to at the end. What's the visual update that we can look forward to? Sam, what about yourself? What I know that you've got some podcasting plans, so what's your plans for on the media side?
Yeah, so like Will was saying, I've set up a makeshift studio here at the Peak Centre, and what we're trying to do is just it's kind of like behind the scenes a little bit. So as the runners are coming in and going to kit check and registration and stuff, I'm kind of grabbing them for a 5-minute interview. So the plan is to put our podcast as the week goes on. So I'll be grabbing people as they arrive. I'll be getting short interviews with people, possibly on course as the week goes by. But there'll also be like people popping in, like people connected with the race, people that like previous winners, like we had Jack Scott in earlier and we had a chat with Jack, get his perspective on the race. So it's basically like another layer of content. Obviously, like what Will does and what the media team does is amazing. And everybody loves, like you say, everybody really wants to see those videos at the end of the day. But this is just like an extra layer of content for people to sort of, because everyone loves content, don't they?
I hope you've got good internet to be getting the podcast uploaded.
We've got a GPX file knocking around between us that we've been adding to for years that'll tell you where the best 4G is in every lay-by between here and the Scottish borders.
Get it over here, please. Get me a copy of that GPX.
Yeah, we'll sort you out.
All right, moving on then. Let's talk about the race itself. So we're going to focus on the winter spine race, the big one, and let's touch on the women's race because from what I can hear, and a lot of the chat involved in like the Trail Talk WhatsApp and various DMs and things, people are maybe a little bit more hyped about the women's race.
Rightly, yeah, absolutely. Not that I want to, talk down any of the men in the race. We've obviously got John Kelly coming back, and there's reasons to be excited there. But this is the strongest field of women I've ever seen on this race. It's going to be incredibly exciting, and they're close. they're a community of runners that have been training together, sharing tips, just looking out for each other and propelling each other forwards. I can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah, so let's start off with, and let's just name drop some of them and get some thoughts on that. So I'll start off with Hannah Rickman, second last year, coming off a good season as well. Autumn 100, Northern Traverse, previous winner of the Spine Sprint. So many might think that she would be the favourite.
Yeah, it's so hard to name favourites on this race.
Yeah. It's hard. She, you feel for Hannah because she's had seconds a couple of times now, hasn't she? She's got seconds, so you kind of feel like at some point it has to be her year.
Yeah, and I mean she's been getting stronger year on year. Like the first year that she came second, Claire Banworth had something like a full day on her. By the next year, it was 12 hours. Now I know that's still a really long time, but that's half a day that she put into Claire Banworth in that 12-month period. She's had another year of training since then, which seems to have gone incredibly well. So yeah, a lot of eyes on Hannah, but yeah, she is not alone there as a contender for the favourite for the race.
Sam, so who else are you looking out for to be right at the very front of the women's race?
Yeah, I think so. Lucy Gossage, she's obviously got a great pedigree. Thinking about Laura Swanton, Ruvelin, she's done well at the race before, but she's also had a mixed result with the winter race. So she DNF'd with it was a back injury, wasn't it, a couple of years ago. So I think she's out to sort of not out to prove something, but I think she seems to be well up for it. So those two, and then obviously you've got Sarah Perry, who is an outstanding, determined runner. She's kind of playing it down a little bit, so she's not keen on the pressure, I think, of people expecting her to do well. But at the same time, she's a warrior, and I think that she's going to be up at the front. I'm sure she is.
Touching on Lucy, third last year behind Hannah, and second in the Lakeland 100 last year as well. So I think these types of races, you just get stronger and stronger the more experience you gather. So are we looking at a much faster finish time for these women coming back again?
Potentially. I mean, people ask me for predictions all the time, and I'm still, after all these years of being on the race, if anything, I'm more sensitive than ever about making predictions, because somehow I seem to curse them. Like, if I tell you who's going to be a favourite here, you can guarantee they're going to be out within 24 hours. So don't hold me to this, but yeah, Lucy's coming in strong as well, and it's a bit of a redemption story for her as well. She is reclaiming her spine race experience this time around, and I've seen her twice in the last 12 months. Both times she has claimed that she's not really an ultra runner. She is.
No, I don't believe that.
She's incredibly strong.
Also, you can't. Something I've learned over the years is you really can't make predictions because things can change so much in this race. So the weather can play a part in it. Someone can have a fall, and basically their race is over. Someone might, make a mistake, go the wrong way. Like with Jack and Damo that first year, where he took that wrong turn and got a bit lost. So you can't. You might think that on paper you can see who the faster runners are and who's got the most experience, but at the end of the day, you don't know who's going to turn up first that can get them.
Yeah, with ultra running, variables is one of the main components of it, and the longer the distance, the more variables there are. And like, speaking of one of those massive variables in the spine race is weather. So we're starting this year's race off proper winter conditions.
Yeah.
There's talk that the weather might ease as the week goes on. I think it might be a lie. I think I'm going to be cold as I drive north in the camper van. What are your thoughts on the weather for this year's race? And maybe we could touch on how this might impact on the times.
At the moment, not far out of Edale, just on the Pennine Way, north of here at the moment, there are areas where we're hearing that there is a sort of inch or two thick crust of icy stuff over the top of 3 or 4 feet deep of snow, and underneath that, mud. So what can you hope for if the temperature goes up a few degrees as it's meant to do over sort of Sunday night into Monday, and that snow does start to disappear? It's not necessarily going to make things better. Especially the guys in the sort of shorter races starting tomorrow. I think they kind of need to hope that the next couple of nights are cold and that hard crust stays in there on top of the snow up there. Otherwise, it really could be slow. It really could be a slow year.
Yeah, and as it, if it does turn out that the weather predictions are right, that it's going to melt, or at least it's going to warm up as the week goes on, that obviously presents like another problem, because if it does start to melt, then you're then faced with slush, and there's nothing worse than having your feet in like 6 inches of like slush, basically, that will just freeze you right to your bone, right through your shoes. And that can be another thing. There's plenty of years where people have DNF just because they can't feel the feet. The feet feel like stumps that like disappeared. So just because the weather's going to change doesn't mean it'll necessarily make it easier. It could in fact make it harder for them if it warms up.
Absolutely. I mean, at the moment on the high ground, we've got an awful lot of snow, and we're talking about sort of Arctic-like conditions. Get into the early part of next week, once you're up towards Hadrian's Wall, where it's a lot of low-lying sort of rural agricultural land that they're going through, and it really could be a quagmire for just field after field after field. Yeah,
I think
I'm really selling this.
yeah, you are. Well, we're not here to sell entries; they're all sold.
Yeah,
So we're great.
I do the race coverage, not the marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, thinking back to some years, I forget which year it was, but there was a particularly cold, frozen year, and it ended up being quite a jump in time because the bogs had been frozen over. But it feels like this year we're going to get a mix of both, and maybe the slower runners or the mid-pack back are going to get the worst of it because they're going to experience it for longer.
Jack did well, didn't he, last year, because the ground was frozen. So you've obviously, like up on Kinder, you've got all of the bogs that you can just, under normal conditions, you could take one step to the left and you're in a bog up to your waist, basically. And so the fact that everything was frozen over just made it harder underfoot, but it meant that you could hold a bit of a pace if that crust was there. So you kind of weighing up what would you prefer? Would you prefer to be a bit warmer, but it'll be boggy, or freezing cold, but you can run a little bit?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to pack an unusual amount of socks.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Before we move on to the men's race, what do we think about? Are there any dark horses in the field that maybe we mightn't recognize a name, but could challenge at the front or be up there?
Yeah, there always are. And you got to think here. I'm thinking back to like 2022. No one was really looking at the roster there and thinking that Ian Keith was going to come through and win that one. And he ran his race, did his thing, relied on his experience and his problem solving and everything else, while everyone else fell to pieces one at a time. And he came in and did it. You just never know with the spine race. It's an expedition as much as it is a race, and there is every chance that a dark horse will just come through and win it. And there's a few people in the field that I've seen over the years that I would just love to bump up a couple of places in the field and grab the win. I'm thinking like Dougie Zinnis. I always name him as a dark horse. Dougie Zinnis one day is going to do something absolutely amazing here. He's been in the top 5 3 years in a row. Like outstanding runner. Yeah.
Thinking of dark horses on the women's side, I think Mel Sykes is one to watch. So Mel she won Challenger South in the summer, didn't she? A couple of summers ago. She unfortunately had to have brain surgery, didn't she? And was out for about 6 months. But then she came back, didn't she? And she took second, didn't she? At Challenger South again.
Yeah, she did.
So,
and she's been training with that sort of group of women we were talking about earlier. You've also got Elaine Bisson in there.
yeah,
Like she's been up on the podium before. Nikki Arthur, who won the Challenger North last year, she was incredibly strong, and she knows what that difficult top end of the course is like. Yeah, always a couple of interesting dark horses to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it is shaping up to be a great race. So moving on then to the men, John Kelly coming back after his DNF last year.
Yeah.
Any intel on how we think John might do this year or how he's feeling? He's obviously come from the whole hurricane and disaster relief and stress and works at home.
Yeah. I think we probably know as much as you do there. John plays his cards pretty close. I'm not sure what he's going to do. I'm really not. But I feel like the stuff you just referenced there makes me feel like he's going to be coming in here at his peak level of determination. And John Kelly focus is razor focus. You know, he's absolutely capable of doing something sensational here, and I really think there's every chance he's of the right mindset to do that right now. But we don't know with John. He really does play those cards close.
I think he's worldwide with that. Seeing John when he's focused is, you know, an unstoppable force, and you know he's got that experience just in the race, full stop, and on the Pennine Way. You know, he's got that record that he knows what he's doing. But I like to sort of root for the underdog, and I really want to see Kim Collison do well. You know, he is. You know, I always feel for him when he's the years that he's DNF'd, and I speak to him and interview him afterwards, and he was like, "I've got to sort this problem out." I interview him again. He's like, "I've sorted this. I'm ready for it." And then he's had a DNF again, and I just think that at some point he's the race has got to work for him at some point.
Yeah, and he is looking strong. I saw him at the Lakeland 100, and he was in great form. I watched him dip Van Dyke over the line, jump up in the air, and click his heels. He seems to be having a great time at the moment. I'd love to see Kim do well.
What were the causes of the DNFs in 22 and 23?
I can't remember. Oh, he had a problem with so he's got a medical issue that involves he's on some medication that stops his muscles. It's like a muscle issue that he's got, and I can't remember the name of it. I've done a podcast with him where he sort of went into depth about it, and he sort of swapped his medication, and it wasn't working for him, and he basically anything over like 100 miles, and he just stopped, all his muscles started to sort of cramp up and stiffen up. So he set off at a good pace. That would have been the 22 race, would that have been, or 23?
You tell me. It sounds like your memory's better than mine.
They all blur into one. Someone's just put on the chat knee problems last year, and that sounds about right. I think it was, wasn't it? That he had issues with his knee. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Jed, put that in there. Yeah, so the medical DNF was fairly particular. You would think you would have that nailed. Obviously, Kim is such a strong runner and great on this type of terrain, and it feels like it's a perfect type of event for him. So it's sort of weird to see that he's had the two DNFs, but he's coming off his 360-kilometer win at the Swiss Peaks in August, so he can't not be a top contender with his resume. Interesting to see what he'll do.
That just shows how unpredictable this race is. Someone on paper who's had like an amazing year and done really well at big races comes here, and then it all falls apart for him, and then you've got the people that show up out of nowhere seemingly and do really well. So I think that basically the theme of the race is that you can't predict a lot of it.
Yeah, but people keep asking me to on camera.
Okay, moving on then. What about Simon Roberts? What do we think there? First in the Challenger North 2022, and previous winter spine, he was 16th in 2020, but we know Simon has achieved a lot and what his potential is. So what are the thoughts around Simon?
Sorry, I was just going to say that earlier I was having a chat with Jack Scott, and we were talking about his approach to the race with media, and how he felt that sometimes you had to sort of go dark with media to kind of focus yourself for the race. And I was saying that Simon Roberts has done the same thing this year, so I'm, got quite a good rapport with him, over the years, sort of interviewing him and having chats with him and a bit of banter. And I asked him for an interview for this upcoming race, and he said, no, I'm not doing any interviews this year. So I said to Jack that Simon's pulling a Jack Scott on me by going dark on media. So maybe he's going to pull something amazing out of the bag, or maybe he just doesn't want the limelight or the pressure. I don't know.
Or maybe he just doesn't want to talk to you, Sam.
Maybe.
It could just be that. But no,
I can't believe that it's that. No,
he's an incredibly strong runner, though, isn't he? Yeah, it'd be great to see Simon do well. He's certainly capable of it, no doubt.
Yeah. And yeah, the whole going dark on media is a trend that we heard from the summer with some of the athletes at UTMB. And apparently there's some scientific data to say, it's worth so much of a lowering the stress and all this type of thing.
Not good for us though, is it?
It's not, no, we're just here for the content. So who else should we be looking out for in the men's field? And we'll throw into that any dark horses as well.
Eugenie.
Yeah.
I will always bring up Eugenie. There is still a win in him somewhere. There absolutely is. And I've seen him run into walls so many times on this race, but he will not stop coming back and trying again. And I'll be willing that guy onto the podium every time he turns up.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's my perennial dark horse. I'm always here backing him.
He's a great character. He always turns up at the race like early and just plonks himself at the peak centre where everyone comes to register and get kit checked. Well, he just hangs around, and basically you have to kick him out because he's not supposed to. He's like in the area where we're having food and stuff. And the first year I was on the race, I didn't know who he was. I came and was working on the checkpoint, and he came and asked me, like in his broken English, whether I could give him a cigarette. And afterwards, I was like, "Who was that?" And so I was like, "It's Eugenie." He's like, he always does really well at the spine. I'm like, he just asked me for a cigarette. So over the years, I've kind of developed like this little bit of a relationship with him, where every time I see him, the first thing I say to him is "Dos cerveza, por favor." And I think he finds it funny. I think he finds it. He might be the only one that finds it funny though.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, we'll find out.
Yeah, we will. I don't think we've mentioned Sian yet.
Yes.
Sian Ove. I mean, Tour de Glaciers last year, absolutely outstanding summer spine in 22, I think it was.
Yes.
Oh, my memory is getting bad, but yeah, he's back again this time around. And yeah, I mean, he was outstandingly strong when he did that summer 22. That was a really, really fast time. But another one who's quite quiet on socials, another one you don't hear much about. I don't know what kind of shape or mindset he's coming in with. That's going to be really interesting to find out. But he is an incredibly strong, and also another runner who's focused, calm, has assist. Yeah, he could do very, very well.
Because he struggled, didn't he? He DNF'd, didn't he, on 20? Was it 22? Winter of 22, he DNF'd.
The one before
Middleton. Yeah, he got the was it compartment syndrome? I think he'd got in his shins. I think something like that. Yeah, not good.
There's a particular type of athlete that does Tour de Glacier. I wouldn't say they would be content first. Head down, big goals. So that's interesting. Let's move on and just talk a little bit about the route as we wrap up in a couple of minutes. Obviously, we're going to have thousands of people watching dots for days on end. What I think maybe would help the people that are dot watching when they're meant to be working, when they're sitting in the toilet looking on their phone, checking the trackers and things, where are the particular cruxes of the race? Like, where do we see DNF or where would we be looking out for front runners maybe taking a sleep break or longer stops?
It's always a tricky one. I know that people's approaches to sleeping has changed over the years. So as the races got faster, people have been inclined to do it with less and less sleep. So like Jack Scott, what was he last year? 20 minutes, or was it? Or
something like
20
that,
minutes in the time that he took. But there's sort of a new school of thought now that, so when I was speaking to Kim Collison, he was sort of saying that he feels that that tide might start turning the other way and people start to focus more on trying to get sleep earlier on in the race to sort of give them a bit more pace during the rest of the race. So rather than people sort of running themselves into the ground, like Jack Scott did, but successfully, people might sort of shifting it the other way, and that maybe the race will get quicker because people are banking sleep earlier, possibly.
But who's going to go first?
Yeah.
Are you going to be the first of the front runners to pull up at CP1 and take a 6-hour nap, watching everybody else disappear off ahead of you? I don't know how you would do that. And so many of the spine runners will tell you, the guys at the front anyway, that their race doesn't really start until Hawes Hard or 108 miles in. Like they're not even thinking about sleep or rest until then. That's almost like a warm up. Wild to me still after all these years, but yeah, I don't see a lot of the front runners sleeping before that point. And quite often all the way up to Alston before they have a proper nap.
And what mile is that?
So Hawes is 108, isn't it? And
yeah.
Middleton is another 30 miles, is it? And so 138 miles, something. Well, it's changed, hasn't it? It's not Middleton anymore, is it?
Langenbeck, but there
It's a bit further, so it's probably more like 140 odd.
Yeah, easy.
But obviously it's long. 140 miles of the Pennine Way is its own beast in itself.
Understatement, Sam.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, we're coming up on time, so let's just wrap it up with maybe you could give us a rundown, Will, of what we should expect or anything you want to say from the media side.
Wow. I mean, what you should expect. Who knows? Who knows? And that's the point with the spine race. There are so many variables, and we've got Arctic conditions out there at the moment, which are going to change over the week. Anything could happen. Any one of those dark horses we mentioned could end up winning. The women's race is definitely going to be exciting. Like, I couldn't pinpoint one thing for you. I'm here year on year, event on event, and I am particularly excited about this one. I think this is going to be epic.
And what will we see out on course from a media perspective? Do we have many creators and creating stuff along the route?
Lots.
Well, yeah, we've obviously got our podcaster in resident here, Sam, who's going to be putting content out. But from our side, we've got our usual squadron of adventure photographers who are going to be out there taking photos day in, day out, whatever the conditions are. We'll be sharing those. We've also got myself, Ali Bailey, who's going to be joining us on camera, and Cameron Wright from this side as well. And we're going to be doing a few more video updates along the way this time, not just that roundup in the evening. When big stuff happens, we're going to talk to you about it. So you're going to see more of my big bald head, more Ali Bailey, more Cammy, and just more video content in general.
And are we going to see that on Instagram or YouTube, or where can we direct people?
Everywhere.
Great.
Both. Yeah. It's definitely on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. We're looking at setting up Blue Sky even. We're branching out.
I'm not doing that until Barkley.
Yeah, Keith is there. Keith is there ready for Barkley.
And Sam, will you be basing yourself there for the duration, or are you going to be getting out on course?
Yeah, I'll be. So I'm going to hang around here until Sunday. So sort of catching people that are coming in and doing the big race on Sunday. I'll probably put out a podcast. There was talk of doing it tonight, but it's most likely going to be tomorrow night, and that'll be sort of a roundup of interviews of people I've spoken to that are doing all the races over the weekend. And then I'll be heading up north to catch people before the start of the Challenger North, which is Monday morning. And then there's also the North Sprint as well, which is that starts on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Tuesday for the North Sprint, which is a new race for this year. So I'll be up and down the course and everywhere in between, like everyone is on the media team.
Great. Okay, guys. And all to the viewers, thanks for tuning in. You can replay this on Instagram. It'll also be on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple from tomorrow morning. And wish us all good luck as we head north into the snow and the ice. I will see you on Sunday, guys.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
See you.